Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmidty, Swanny and Clarky visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right, how are we?
Well, thank you. Yourself?
Yes.
Guys?
Very good, very good. Yes.
Very good here too. Yes, very good.
Now we're doing two stories back to back, so we don't probably have much to report in the last 5 minutes.
I can report that the spit roast is coming along beautifully.
Yeah, I'm a bit upset about that. When you were telling it earlier, I thought, it's only 4 hours to Albury.
We're getting used to it so that we can start inviting people up for a spit roast.
Well, I was going to say, what are you doing next weekend? All right. Well, so yes, the lamb spit's going well. I've now got ideas of going up to the valley. Maybe we could do our next recording with in the same room.
Oh yes, we could indeed.
It's very exciting. Now, especially now that you seem to have sorted out your technical issues. So for our listeners, the story I'm about to tell, I told these guys last week, but Paul and Stuart had the worst technical issues that we have ever experienced.
Ever.
Left me with 18 different sets of files because they didn't manage to stay on for more than 3 minutes at a time. So in thinking about putting that together, I thought that's going to take like the rest of my life. And also, as a result of it, poor old Clarky, for once, didn't have much of a chance to say much because every time we opened his mouth, our recording system chucked him out. So either it was doing a job of self-censoring through AI, or you just had some problems with the computer.
The podcast fights back.
It was.
Shut up, mate.
We're going to try again, and this is one of the few times where, yes, Clarky and Swanny have heard the story before, but the good news is they both seem to have some kind of brain problem where every time we do a story, they forget almost instantly what it was. And in fairness, I wrote these notes 2 weeks ago, and I have forgotten a lot of it too, so we'll see how we go.
I think it's a coping mechanism. I think I deliberately block it all out so that I don't become even more
jaded,
mentally deranged.
Oh, you say that, and yet some things come back to you. And yes, I mean, I maybe we do need to start looking at a business expense of some counselling for us. But so the one you did, Swanny, which I found really horrific, the girl in the toilet, the big W.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Recently,
I drove past there recently.
Two instances where that has come back to me. That one really sat with me. One, I was in a Safeway with, and I ran into a friend of mine who was talking to me, and we were having a little theatre gossip.
Who was murdering a child in the toilet?
No. We were having a little chat about theatre, but she had her 2 children with her. And because they were bored by mummy talking about theatre gossip with this woman being me in the supermarket, they said, "Can we go get some ice creams?" And she said, yeah. And they ran off down towards the freezer end, and we were down at the bakery end. And I just watched them like a hawk the entire time.
Yep.
And then I caught up with her again later, and I said, I'd done this story, and it was about this kid who was murdered in a toilet at the Big W. And she said, "I noticed how much you stared." She said, "I actually noticed that you were
the freak.
Intent." I was the weirdo.
Yeah,
you were absolutely intent on where my kids were. I said, "Well, because it's heightened my awareness of things that you think are a safe environment, and they're not."
Yep.
Similarly, we, as you know, through my work, we had a presence at the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And we were booking people to be on the stand, and one of them didn't have a working with children permit. I was asked a question about whether or not that would be okay, because apparently the Grand Prix said that's all right provided you can supervise. No, you can supervise this person. And
you can keep an eye on your pedophile.
Yeah, exactly. My response was,
"All right, leave it with me, love.
Just keep it under wrap for the weekend.
Keep an eye on the kitty fiddler for us, will you?"
Yeah. We don't have time to be supervising. And I'm not saying that this person was a kitty fiddler. I'm just
right.
saying,
my children call me the kitty fiddler if I touch them anywhere or remotely nice. They go, "Oh, Mum, you're such a kitty fiddler." Shut up.
That's a lot to deal with.
They're so naughty.
God. Things that would not have been said to a mother 20 years ago.
No,
but anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, so I was like, no, we're a child safe organisation.
Yeah.
We insist that everyone has a working with children's permit. And then I had to say to the girl working for me who I also had told this story to, your story, Swanny, I said, what's the worst that could happen? And it was in a chat on Teams, and I wrote, think toilet and a big W. To which she wrote back, that's just gross. And I said, and that's what I'm worried about now. So, yes, I've become a person who's much more cognizant of they are outliers, but you've got to be careful. Anyway, I'm Schmidty.
I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarky. Together we are
deeply traumatized. Trial by one. It's only taken 130 episodes for us to become deeply traumatized by what we do, but that's okay. And then someone else asked me, aren't you worried about, the people who listen to your show, that they'll come and get you? And I said, not me, but one of my colleagues is. She's very worried about wiggers.
See, I told you I'm not crazy. Other people are feeling the same way. Oh, God, that's made me, oh, God.
No,
wiggers.
I did point out that the only people who listen in Australia are Paul's friends, and otherwise they're in other countries, and I doubt that anyone's going to be that bothered by us to pay to come to Australia to do anything to us, so I think we're fine.
Just make sure no one in WA is listening, and I'll be comfortable with the isolation.
Or Adelaide.
No, Adelaide.
They're coming for me. They're coming for me.
God, I reckon half of Australia is going to sink as the East Coast all comes across to Perth to get you. It'll just go, whoa.
Be a tilt.
No, I wouldn't
worry
about it.
The Earth isn't flat.
Oh, God.
The advantage of only having 30 regular listeners is I don't think they're going to come and get us.
True fact.
Oh, okay. So, shall I tell you a little story that you may or may not recall some of the details of?
Please do.
Please.
Okay. This story was a bit inspired by a dream that I had a couple of weeks back. And in the dream, I was on the top story of the houseboat with Kipling. For our listeners, that's my puppy dog. He's 10 months old. And as often happens in my dreams, things aren't actually quite the same as in real life. So in the dream version of the houseboat, we were at the front of the boat.
As often happens in your life, things aren't the same as in everyone else's.
Is that what I said? I meant often happens in my dreams.
No, I just feel like you could also apply that to your life where just weird shit happens.
Keeping it interesting, keeping it real. That's my life, right? Are you eavesdropping? Who says that in a shop? What?
Yes, I am. Actually, flashback to last episode.
Yes, I am. Yes, it is. Yes. At any rate, the houseboat in reality, we've got these stainless steel balustrades that run along the back of the boat to keep people from falling off because, as we've already discovered, safety is a thing in Australia. And Swanny, you'll be pleased to know that originally I actually wanted glass panels. I wasn't going to put shower panels up. I was going to put proper tempered glass. But my brother said I wasn't allowed to have them because there was too much weight, so never mind.
Oh, so but you should have said it. Look, if it's shower glass, I don't think we'll find that's a problem for us. If someone falls on it, it won't save them, but it's not going to be heavy. Yeah.
There's a few spare panels on a bridge in Bali that we could use. Geez. They're only lightweight.
Oh, God.
I don't know what I'm going to do with that red-fingered hand, though. Like, where's that going to go on the boat? Again, flashback to last episode. Yes.
I'd love to see a bridge. I was the hand model for the
bridge.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
Oh. You want long now? Anyway.
Oh, honey, why you no ham?
Right, so going back to my dreams, and that they are often different from reality. So by that I mean sometimes I'm dreaming of a person, and in the dream I know, say I'm dreaming of Clarky, right? And I know what Clarky looks like, obviously, but in my dream, he looks like someone else. He's some other body. But in my head, my consciousness is saying, oh, that's Clarky, even though he doesn't look like him. He's someone else entirely. So I have to do weird things that happen in my brain, and that's just how things work, I guess. In this one, Kipling and I were standing at the front of the boat that doesn't actually have any balustrades. And for no apparent reason, he sees something in the distance, and he leaps over the balustrade, which is, I don't know, 5 meters above the water. And so I thought, oh my God. So I remember waking up immediately when this happened. And I had a bit of a start because I thought, oh, my God, is he all right? Because I didn't even look over it. In my dream, I thought, oh, he's going to be injured. And that's sort of the last thought that I had in the dream, and then I woke up. I found him curled up at the foot of the bed, fast asleep and uninjured, and everything was fine, and he was totally unaware that a dream version of himself had hurled himself off the boat in pursuit of some imaginary thing. And I always have had really vivid dreams. Sometimes they're like something out of a movie. I always dream in colour, and sometimes I'm a character in the movie, so I'm not even myself sometimes. I'm, I don't know, an assassin or an exciting movie character.
A serial killer or a soap
No,
maker.
I don't think I've ever killed anyone in a dream. I've been killed in a dream.
I love that you said I don't think I've ever killed anyone in a dream.
I've never killed anyone, full stop. I've never, ever killed anyone, full stop. I've not even had that kind of dream. In my dreams, usually I would be the victim of something. And
oh, you're always the victim, Schmidty.
I know. And I just.
Why me again?
I also have flying dreams. If you imagine the Greatest American Hero where he's like running and trying to take off, that's pretty much how my flying dreams work. So I can fly, but it takes tons of effort, and I usually don't get very far off the ground. And I often get caught in power lines, and I get this sort of horrible experience of like being electrocuted by the power lines. And I'm sure some psychologist somewhere is frothing at the meaning of those dreams, but I just see them as my subconsciousness working through some frustrations I have. I remember once saying to my brother about my flying dreams, and he said, "Oh yes, they're sex dreams." I'm like, "Well, no,
your
I
flying
have them
dreams
too."
Are dreadful.
They're sex dreams.
Yeah, it's the Freudian. There's something that was to do with.
Is that just his standard response to anything about dreams?
Probably.
They're sex dreams.
Yeah, probably.
I'm a dog jumped off the houseboat.
Oh, it's a sex dream. Yeah. Following on from Kipling and that dream, which clearly stuck in my head, I did come across this story, which also has led me to understand that I have some of the symptoms of parasomnia. What is parasomnia, I hear you ask?
It's a little place in France.
Yeah, it's
where everyone
lovely.
sleeps.
Parasomnia.
It's lovely. So parasomnia is a catch-all term for unusual behaviours that people experience prior to falling asleep, while asleep, or during the arousal period between sleep and wakefulness. And sorry, this is from sleepfoundation.org. These behaviours vary considerably in terms of characteristics, severity and frequency, but include sleepwalking, sleep paralysis and night terrors.
Been there, done that. Had a child who had night terrors.
Oh, don't. What happened? Don't tell me about it. What happened?
It was for a couple of years. It was over a period of a couple of years, and he would come to us sometimes, or sometimes we'd hear him yelling or screaming, whatever. We'd go to him. He was asleep but awake. It was kind of weird, but like very distressed, and he couldn't really sort of talk any sense into. And then when it was sort of over, he'd just go back to sleep, and he would have no recollection of it the next day. It was awful for a while, and then just sort of grew out of it, I guess. I don't know. But it's a bit scary when it's happening because, they've got their eyes open, they're walking around. It's not like but they're sort of making quite a bit of noise, a din.
Is he terrorised or is he terrorising you?
No, he's terrorised.
No,
it's upsetting. Yeah.
Yep.
And I reckon he probably would have been, if I had to hazard a guess, probably between the ages of maybe 4 and 6 or something like that. It probably happened. Yeah, not every night, not all the time. And the thing was, at the time we didn't live in Australia, so we had a little bit of help. And I was always happy when I was there because I was like, oh God, I would hate for that to be with someone else who wasn't his mum. Do you know what I mean? You kind of want to be there, and it was scary for someone else. But yeah, it was. I don't know we don't know whatever triggered it in terms of something that happened that day over tired food. I never knew. It was just a period of time.
Is the treatment to play "Don't Worry, Be Happy"? Or always look on the bright side of life, or something to
treatment to try and get them to go back to trying to get them calm down and go back to bed is all I can remember really. But there was no treatment as such. It was just something that would happen occasionally. I guess it's like with people who sleepwalk or do whatever else. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it does. And all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, here we go, it's happening now. A little bit like that.
Hold on to that thought.
Oh, okay.
Experts have determined that these phenomena occur when the brain transitions in and out of sleep. Parasomnias are more common in children than adults, but these behaviours have been recorded across different age groups. So there are different types of parasomnia. While each parasomnia involves distinct symptoms, these behaviours can be categorised into 3 general groups: NREM-related, REM-related, and other. So stop listening to REM and then you won't have these issues.
Have you ever cried in your sleep?
Yes.
Yes. So that has happened to me a few times, particularly last year after my dad died, and I hadn't had it for a long time. And then yesterday morning, I'd gotten up very early and I thought, oh, well, I go back to bed and have a little sleep because I know it's bad for you, but I thought I'll do that. And I went back to bed. I'd taken the dog out the toilet and done whatever else. Anyway, I went to bed and I was having like this really vivid dream. In this dream, I walked into a study and my dad was there, and I've not dreamt once about my dad since he passed away. And I always think, oh, he'll come into me in a dream. Anyway, it was him, but he was in my husband's study, but there were all these Christmas lights everywhere and like Christmas decorations. It was crazy. It was like super like illuminated. And I said to him, oh, hi, kind of thing. And I said, what's going on here? And he was like, oh, I just thought I'd do something with him, which is so not like him. But then I got upset immediately and I said, oh, can I have a hug? And he went, yeah, sure. So I went over to him, and as I went to hug him, I started crying, but I was crying in my dream, I think. And he said to me, can you close your mouth? I don't want to get sick. And that made me wake up. Oh my God, I thought, you're dead. How gross is that your own dad in your dream goes, can you close your mouth? Because I'm like, I don't want to get you germs.
Oh, no.
Oh,
I told
dear.
my stepmother yesterday, I said, oh my God, I was so embarrassed. It was like, I just felt a bit dirty and grotty. It was like, and he's like, can you like close your mouth? I don't want to catch it germs. And I woke up thinking, oh my God, that was bizarre. I was crying. It's like, oh, you're dead. I wasn't going to make you sick. Oh my God.
It's not quite the message from beyond that you were looking for.
It was all very weird. No, I didn't. There's nothing that I was actually able to take away and go, oh my God. There's no message there. That was just weird.
Shut your mouth when you're crying. You're passing.
Close your mouth. I don't want to get you germs. Yeah.
Well, hold on to that because there might be some things in the next bit I'm talking about that you might be able to relate to. So any NREM-related parasomnias occur during the first 3 stages of the sleep cycle, which are collectively known as NREM sleep, and that could be where you were, right?
Yeah.
So the most common NREM-related parasomnias are known as disorders of arousal. These parasomnias are characterized by episodes of incomplete awakening, limited responsiveness to other people attempting to intervene or redirect the sleeper, and limited awareness during the episode.
It's a sex dream.
Most people who experience disorders of arousal have little or to no memory of their episodes. Confusional arousals. During a confusional arousal, a sleeper acts disoriented and may sit up and look around but doesn't leave the bed, and I do that, so that's a check for me.
What do you do? Just
you wake up and you're like, whoa, go back to sleep. Right. Quite often in that state as the confused, aroused person, I wake up and I think, where the hell am I? Or I have a picture in my mind of something that might have been a dream that was happening, and it sort of feels like it's still happening around me, and then slowly my consciousness comes in and I go, oh no, I'm just in my bed. This is normal. I'm dreaming. Sleepwalking, which is obviously sleepwalking, occurs when people get out of bed while still asleep but exhibit limited awareness or responsiveness to their surroundings. They may engage in other behaviours such as sorting clothes. I wish Tony
from the fridge.
I've got to say, I wish Tony had sleepwalking and sorted clothes. That'd be great.
Can you induce it?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. Sleepwalking can also lead to injuries if the individual loses their balance or collides with other objects, which I have done in the past. Just walked into things. Night terrors, and I have sleepwalked too. Not for a while, but I have in the past definitely got out of bed, walked around, and then woken up and thought, I'm sleepwalking and gone back to bed. Night terrors, so we just talked about that. People who experience night terrors often cry, scream, or make nonsensical sounds in their sleep and are difficult to awaken. A night terror episode can last a few minutes or up to 40 minutes.
Oh.
And unfortunately, I don't think, back to your point, Swanny, I don't think I've ever had a night terror, but I've definitely cried in my sleep.
Yeah.
And awoken crying.
Yeah, that's happened to me a few times.
And usually I'm having a dream about something, obviously, that's got emotional connection or something, or like I've dreamt of mum or dad or someone who died. No, I don't usually cry after a sex dream. I only cry when I get woken up at the pivotal moment. No, when I get woken up just before it gets to its natural end, let's put it that way. And then I'm upset because, I was trying to avoid the word climax. Anyway, yeah. And then there's sleep-related sexual abnormal behaviours.
Sex dream. abnormal sex dream.
Known colloquially as sexsomnia, this parasomnia is characterized by sexual behaviors during sleep, such as masturbation, initiation of sexual intercourse, and sexual noises.
What are you up to? What's going on there? What?
Initiation of sexual intercourse
while you're
sleeping.
Do you want to leave it alone?
I reckon that's just an excuse for when they get rejected. Oh, sorry, I must have been sleeping. It must have been.
What was the name of that one?
Sexsomnia.
Sexsomnia. That sounds like a name of a bad, like, I don't know, rave track or something. Yeah.
Another common NREM-related parasomnia is sleep-related eating disorder, which is characterized by episodes of dysfunctional eating that occur after arousal from sleep. Most people with this condition exhibit limited responsiveness during their eating episodes, which, to be fair, I exhibit limited responsiveness during my eating episodes, but I'm not normally asleep, and have little to no memory of the events. Potential concerns include ingestion of toxic substances, injuries from cooking or preparing food, and physiological effects of unhealthy or excessive eating.
That one can strike you at any time of day.
It can indeed. I don't think I've got it, but then again, maybe that explains why I'm a bit rotund.
Or why I eat a whole bag of chips when I just was going to have one or two.
Well, they are very Moorish, just like Murder for Joanna Dennehy. It was very Moorish.
Swanny, that's a past episode joke in case you don't know.
I did get it. Funny, at the time, but again, my memory coming into play, I've had a conversation where one of my children didn't know the word Moorish and I was staggered. So I was explaining to them what Moorish was.
So really? Well, when you stab someone 37 times, you get a little bit of an experience and it becomes Moorish. That's right. Anyway, REM-related parasomnias occur during the REM stage of sleep, which, of course, as we all know, is the rapid eye movement bit. During normal REM sleep, the brain is particularly active. The eyes move quickly and muscles are temporarily paralyzed.
Sex dream.
Most dreaming occurs during REM sleep. People with REM-related parasomnias experience irregularities in the normal functions of REM sleep. This is where you're a little bit, if you have these parasomnias, you have slightly different responses. And muscle paralysis might be one of them. There are several common REM-related parasomnias. There's RBD, which is REM sleep behavior disorder, characterized by unusual vocalizations or movements during REM sleep in an attempt to act out a dream. No, when you're trying to act out a dream, sexual or otherwise, The behaviors tend to be associated with self-defense and may include punching, kicking, or yelling expletives.
Kangaroo boxing has happened.
Yes, I have heard that someone was defending themselves in their sleep.
We were lying in bed and Stuart was doing these ones. And I'm like, what on earth are you doing? And when he woke up, I said, God, what are you doing? He goes, I dreamt I was fighting a kangaroo. And I thought, well, that explains why in his dream he must have had kangaroo arms as well. Yeah.
RBD is commonly seen in people with Parkinson's disease as well. Sleep paralysis. People with sleep paralysis briefly lose the ability to move their body as they are falling asleep or upon waking. This can be paired with hallucinations or feeling suffocated. Sleep paralysis is not dangerous, but it can lead to anxiety or distress about falling asleep. And I've often heard people talk about sleep paralysis in the context of they've had a dream and they think maybe that they've seen a ghost or something and they couldn't move their body and that sort of stuff, but it's probably just a relatively normal parasomnia.
I've had that.
I've had sleep paralysis. Yeah,
I've had sleep paralysis. I've had that. Yeah, and there's one in particular. There was one case, one particular. I can still remember it so clearly. I could not move, and it wasn't particularly late. And I think I was asleep.
Were you in my house in Radstock?
No, it wasn't that.
We all know it actually was haunted.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. But I think I've mentioned to you before where I thought that I had there was a heavy weight on my chest as well, so I couldn't move, and that was terrifying. And I had lots of lights, and it wasn't even if it was in like pitch darkness because I think someone was out and there was like a hallway light on down thing. So I was in a room and so I felt like I could even see what was going on, but I couldn't move. I was terrified. I felt like someone was holding me down.
That's pretty much exactly what someone with sleep paralysis will describe it as. Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
And then there's nightmare disorder, which is everyone has unpleasant dreams every now and then, but people who experience recurrent vivid nightmares that result in fatigue, distress, and other daytime impairments may be diagnosed with nightmare disorder. Nightmare disorder is often seen in people who have post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh.
And the other category for parasomnias is dedicated to behaviours that occur during the transition between sleep and wakefulness, as well as those that can occur during both NREM and REM sleep. So the other is everything else.
Is this other?
basically.
Yeah, right.
I get this one. Exploding head syndrome.
What? I mean, I feel like I know what that is without you telling me, but
I'd never heard of this before.
imagine if you're lying in bed and your partner's head explodes.
I don't think it actually explodes. It's the people who have it.
Ah.
Hear a loud noise or feel an exploding sensation in their head when they wake up. Also, I don't know what an exploding sensation actually feels like, but okay.
What is that? Yeah.
They may also perceive or an imagined flash of light upon wakening. This sensation can leave the sleeper with lingering feelings of palpitation, dread, and anxiety, not surprisingly.
And their head spread all over the walls.
Yeah. And some people may experience multiple episodes per night, which is pretty awful.
Ooh.
What?
Then you can have sleep-related hallucinations. This condition can involve hypnopompic hallucinations.
Nailed it.
Fuck. Hypnopompic hallucinations when waking up or hypnagogic hallucinations when falling asleep. The hallucinations can include vivid images, sounds, or other sensations. The hallucinations are sometimes associated with sleep paralysis. In extreme cases, sleepers may leave their bed in an attempt to escape what they are experiencing. And the old classic bedwetting. Also known as sleep enuresis, bedwetting refers to involuntary urination during sleep. Bedwetting is quite common in young children. To be considered a parasomnia, it must occur in someone aged 5 or older and can occur at least twice per week for 3 months. I wet the bed as a kid.
I'm
putting it out
we
there.
all did.
I did.
Yeah.
I was
Really?
I was chronic. Like I had a whole host of things end up in hospital and stuff. But yeah, my kids, they were not like their mother, thank God. Because as I said, my poor mattress, my poor mother. Oh my God, it was outside all the fucking, it was revolting. Yeah, it was pretty gross.
But was that psychological or is that
Well, the thing, I don't think it was
physiological?
I think, I was in hospital, but I was forever having like lots of infections and stuff, and I was on like really strong antibiotics, and really dark under the eyes. There was a whole host of things, and I was surprised that I was told that I'd suffer, have a weakness the rest of my life, but I really haven't. But it was absolutely chronic, probably from the age of about 4 till maybe about 8 or 9. I remember I had special permission at school that there was myself and one other girl. I was allowed to put my hand up and go to the toilet anytime I needed to.
Well, frankly, any kid should be allowed to go to the toilet when they need to.
Yeah, I know, right? Did you ever...
Absolutely not allowed to. Don't worry, there was no prize, because if you had to go to the toilet at my school during certain months of the year, you had to wear an ice cream tub on your head so the magpies wouldn't get you.
Oh, wouldn't swoop you.
I was like, oh, let me go to the bathroom, miss. Please, let me go. I'd really like to get that fucking old tub, ice cream tub on my head.
I got visions of one kid in your class with their hand up, absolutely busting. Can I go to the toilet? No, mate, you can't. And then you going, can I go to the toilet? Yeah, sure. And then poor kids crossing their legs, like trying not to let it rip.
Oh, my God.
The sources for the crime I'm about to talk about are historycollection.com, theguardian.com, medium.com, allthat'sinteresting.com, amnomalian.com, medievalist.net,
Medievalist.net.
Medievalist.
What have you been looking at? I know.
What the actual?
That's just one of her ones she checks on daily anyway.
It's like Lad Bible, yeah.
I reckon it was a source that had nothing really in it that I used, but I just loved it and I knew you'd all carry on about it, so I thought I'd better put it in.
Well, you're getting the carry on.
Evidencelockerpodcast.com, Wikipedia, and the Chicago Tribune.
That is a long list.
I know.
You've researched,
thorough.
girlfriend.
As always.
No Smithsonian, though. Disappointing.
Sorry about that. Okay, so Kenneth James Parks was born in 1964 in Toronto. He had 2 older brothers, but his dad racked off when he was just 4, and his mother remarried. Ken didn't really take to his new dad, and when he was 15, his mum and stepdad, brothers and half-sister, moved away. But Ken stayed in Toronto with his grandparents. His staying in Toronto was to do with him not wanting to go with the parents and his stepdad. It wasn't because they rejected him or said, we don't like you. It was his choice. So whilst Ken's family life had a few bumps, he was well regarded and a kind-hearted fellow. When he was around 20, he met and fell in love with Karen Woods. Karen was a runaway from her family, unlike old Joanna Dennehy, not a psycho killer though. And so when he met Karen, he said to her, look, I really think that you should talk to your parents and reconcile, which she did. The parents of Karen thought that he was an absolutely awesome bloke for encouraging her to reconcile with them. And Karen's parents are Barbara Ann and Dennis Woods.
Barbara
Ann. Barbara Ann. I know. I saw it written as Barbara and other times as Barbara Ann, and definitely her middle name is Ann, and I don't know whether she was calling herself Barbara Ann or just Barbara, but we'll go with Barbara Ann because it's good. So Ken and Karen married at 21, and Ken, having had a strained relationship with his own parents, found he loved being part of the Woods family. Karen and Ken spent a lot of time at the Woods house and things were good. So he got on really, really well with Barbara Ann and Dennis.
And the Woodses.
I knew you'd say it, yeah. I said Woods this time. I didn't call them the Woodses anymore. Yeah, I've learned. And I've only had 3 cruises today, not half a bottle of, oh, God, I think I drank a bottle of Sophie B by the time we went into that story. Anyway.
Yeah, before you even started. Hilarious.
Dennis, so Karen's dad, was a quiet sort of guy, but he was very nice to Ken. And Barbara Ann loved her son-in-law. Like, she thought he was the ant's pants. Ken was a big unit. He was 6'5" and he weighed over 100 kilos. So Barbara Ann called him her gentle giant. And by all accounts, he adored Barbara Ann and the feeling was mutual. So, there was a lot of love going on between, not in a sexual way, between Ken, the 20-odd-year-old son-in-law, and his in-laws. By the time Ken was 22, he and Karen were expecting a baby girl and they were living in a home of their own. Ken had a good job as a project coordinator for Revere Electric, which he found really, really demanding. So he was often working more than 10-hour days. So, as with most stories that begin with everything being good and ticking along nicely, something had to go wrong for it to end up on our podcast.
I was just thinking, this is the happiest story you've ever told.
Yeah. Well, it started nicely at any rate.
Ba-bow.
In 1986, Ken went to the races with some friends. Now, he'd never been into betting on horses or anything else in the past, but he had a flutter and, of course, he won. Now, I too have experienced the giddying heights of winning.
Well, that's good news.
Yes, I too have experienced the giddying heights of winning $50 on a $5 to win or place flutter on Cup Day, but happily that didn't spiral into a major gambling addiction. Sadly for Ken, it did. As with many people who become addicted to gambling, Ken didn't walk away from a loss. Instead, he chased a win that never eventuated. Oh, Ken, don't you know the house always wins?
Rookie error.
But I don't know about in WA, Swanny, but we've got a lot of advertising now. We've had tons of gambling advertising for a while, and obviously they're cracking down on the effect of it. They don't make the people stop advertising, but at the end of every ad, they're like,
"Could you be spending your money on?"
Yeah. What are you really gambling with?
Or what else could you spend your money on, or what else, something like that? Yeah, we have that with every ad.
No, but they've got one that's kind of catchy one. It's something about, what do you think you win? How much do you really lose or something? I don't know. It's way better than what I just said. Unfortunately, he was the prime candidate for getting himself into a bit of a gambling issue. So while he was down at the racetrack, Karen was busy working and saving before her maternity leave because they hadn't had the baby yet. They were expecting it. And she was a bit distracted at this time, probably feeling anxious about giving birth and exhausted as the alien in her belly sucked the very life from her. While she was busy glowing and blossoming as motherhood approached.
Easy mistake.
Sorry. There's different ways of looking at these things. Either way, Ken forged her signature, gateway crime, anyone? To use their savings to try to pay off some of his gambling debts. and undoubtedly to try to win some of it back. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough money that they had in their savings, as he'd been racking up debts for months. So he did the only thing he really could. He ripped his employer off, of course.
Oh, yeah. Fair.
Yeah. And, he wouldn't have been the first employee to feel like it was only fair to take a bit more given the hours and work that he put in. But just in case any of our listeners feel that way, no, it's not okay. Ken, who had always been a deep sleeper, was now only getting a few hours sleep as his brain whirred and his anxiety grew.
Word, great word.
Whirring. And then Karen gave birth to their daughter. And if Ken thought he wasn't sleeping well before, he wasn't sleeping at all now. By March 1987, about a year after he'd started gambling, he had taken over $30,000 from his employers.
What?
In today's money, it's around $82,000, which sounds a bit low,
that would have
actually.
been a lot.
It was a decent amount, right?
He's not trying enough.
I tried to see how
He's got to get some better bets.
He does. I tried to see how big Revere Electrical was.
Yeah.
There's a firm in Wisconsin and Illinois that says it's a fourth-generation family-owned business, so it might have been that one. But they had no Toronto branch, so don't know. Anyway, $82,000 did not go unnoticed, and Revere discovered the fraud and fired him, as well as raising criminal charges. They were seeking to have the money returned, though, and they weren't interested in a court case or sending him to jail.
That's interesting.
At this point, Ken, I think they liked Ken. They probably knew that he had some issues. They just wanted their money back, and they fired him, so he couldn't keep taking
There aren't
money
many
off them.
companies that like you that much if you've taken that much money that go, oh, I really like you. I've still got
But
that.
also, it's a bit of a hassle drawing it through the courts and whatever, and what's the point? I just want the money back and then
Well, did he get to keep
mate.
his job too, yeah?
No, they fired him. Yeah.
That's something. Fair enough.
So at this point, Ken had to tell Karen something, right? Because he hadn't told her about his gambling problem. Now he's lost his job. Anyway, so he comes clean and he tells about the gambling and the embezzlement. And whilst I have no doubt she was pissed off, she was erring on the side of the in worse, in sickness and health, bullshit, in good times, in bad,
worse.
for better or for worse. That's right. So she's going for the for worse bit of her marriage vows. And so she said, okay, look, I think the best thing for us to do is put the house up for sale, and then I'll go back to work early after I've had the baby. So she's been surprisingly, in some ways, okay about it. I'm sure she was very angry. It's 1987, though, and I'd get the feeling that she wasn't the kind of person who was rushing into a divorce situation, especially when you're about to have a baby.
She's not a quitter.
That's right. Unsurprisingly, though, things weren't great between them. And the in-laws, Barbara Ann and Dennis, were supportive of the couple, and they were aware that they were having some problems. They didn't actually know what the problems were. They just knew that things weren't going quite right. But everyone had faith that Ken would get himself out of the shit that he was in. But at the same time, Ken was quite embarrassed that he'd got himself in this situation. So he was a bit withdrawn, and with Karen as well, and he avoided his in-laws. But I don't think that's unnatural. I would probably do the same. I mean, my in-laws are dead, so it's not hard to avoid them. Yeah. After one last
how did they die and when?
Before my time. Before I met them. Remember, Tony's 155, so his parents were quite a lot older.
Okay.
In fairness, I think Tony's mum only died a few years before I met him, but yeah. After one last-ditch attempt to win the money back, again forging Karen's signature and taking their money and losing it all, Ken had a physical attack, which presented a lot like a heart attack. So he had heart palpitations, sweating, vomiting, all these things. But then he goes off to hospital. He has tons of tests, and he gets sent home, and he didn't actually have a heart attack.
Faker.
It doesn't take a genius to work out. He wasn't getting any sleep. He was facing possibly criminal charges. He's lost all his money, and he's going to have to sell his house. He's stressed out to the max. So I'm going to have to hazard a guess that it was probably a panic attack. But the good news of it was the episode that frightened him enough to change. So he went to Gamblers Anonymous on May 20th, 1987.
May 20th.
That's right. Make a note of that, Swanny. Yep. Now, he was told there to tell everyone in his family about what he had been going through and what he'd been doing. So I'm assuming being told, go tell everyone in your life.
I've got to tell you
about what's
something.
been going on.
I've got a gambling problem. Okay. I've got to tell you something. Have I told you?
What is it? 7, 12, 25
12.
steps, whatever.
12,
One of
isn't it?
those steps to get over your addiction. Now, he was quite up for it, but I've no doubt that would have put even more stress on him at the time. In order to respond to the requirements of his Gamblers Anonymous and start to heal, he made plans to see his grandmother and tell her on Saturday the 23rd of May. And the next day he was going to tell, so the 24th, he was planning to tell Barbara Ann and Dennis.
Oh, it's a big rollout.
Yeah.
It's like a show. Rolling into town. I've got some news.
It is, but he's sort of like, I'll just get it off my chest. I'll get it out of the way. This is the beginning of the process, whatever. As the weekend loomed, Ken, unsurprisingly, was a bit of a mess. And on the Friday night, he didn't sleep at all. The stress is really starting to get to him.
He doesn't want to get over it, does he? He's happy with his
I think he
life,
does.
and he doesn't want to follow that step.
I don't agree with that. I think he is so aware of the mess he's made of everything, and he probably doesn't want the whole world, he's uncomfortable with the whole world judging him for that mess. But I don't believe at any point that he didn't want to follow through with this.
So the night before, he was so scared about having to tell his grandma, he wet the bed. The end.
That'd be the nicer version of the story, yeah.
Oh, no.
Buckle in.
Well, as it turns out, on the Friday night, as I said, he didn't sleep at all, and I'm pretty sure he was working himself into a bit of a state. And by Saturday morning, he decided, I can't do it, and so he cried off the arrangements, and he put it off a week. And instead, he went off to play a rugby game with some mates. Unsurprisingly, this went down with Karen like a cup of cold sick. So she got stuck into him. So this is the Saturday.
I've had enough of your shit.
Fuck's sake, mate. Pull yourself
Not to
together.
mention you're cold sick.
Oh, that was a previous boss of mine from Foxtel's expression, something going down like a cup of cold sick. And when
Is that
you think
where I
about
got it from? I don't know where I got it from, but I say it all the time.
Oh, Debbie Burke.
There's a story.
Yeah.
And it ends with wash it all down with a cup of cold sick.
Oh, stop it.
Like how to eat worms or something like that.
Oh.
It does what it's supposed to do, and it makes you gag a little.
Yeah.
Yep.
Makes you produce warm sick.
Oh. Anyway, so she's not happy, and she gets stuck into him, and they had a bit of a fight. And then Karen went to work at 4:30 p.m., leaving Ken at home with the baby. And when she got home at 10:30, he'd fed the baby, bathed it, put her down for a sleep. So, just was looking after the kid. And Ken was on the couch watching TV, and Karen joined him for a bit, and then she went to bed at about 12. In the early morning hours of May 24th, so the Sunday, 1987, Ken left the house without locking the front door, which was very unusual for him. He drove 15 miles to his in-laws' house, parked the car, took a tyre iron out of his car, entered the house with a spare key, and went up into Dennis and Barbara Ann's bedroom.
I said, I've got something to tell you. I've got a gambling problem.
And why have I got this tyre iron anyway? Better go back.
I know it's early, but I couldn't sleep.
Do you want a coffee?
I've got to get something off my chest.
Once there, he choked Dennis unconscious.
Oh, that's not what we
That
heard.
wasn't in your script.
No.
When Barbara Ann woke up and realised what was going on and responded to this, he beat her over the head with the tyre iron and then stabbed her to death with her own kitchen knife.
Oh, my God.
Ken then drove to a police station, arriving at 4:45 a.m., covered in blood. He told the cops, I just killed someone with my bare hands. Oh, my God. I just killed someone.
Also a tyre iron and a knife.
I've just killed 2 people. Oh, my God, I've just killed 2 people with my hands. My God, I've just killed 2 people. My hands. I just killed 2 people. I killed them. I just killed 2 people. I've just killed my mother and father-in-law. I stabbed and beat them to death. It's all my fault.
It is.
Accurate so far.
And it's funny because I just had a flashback for when we recorded this last week, which I'm loving the fact that the 2 of you literally don't remember anything, do you? And I thought I had brain damage from too much alcohol. So Ken had sustained wounds to his own hands, which would have been extremely painful. Yet he didn't seem to notice them until sometime after he was at the police station. In fact, he ended up having surgery on his hands and was hospitalised for several days. I think he'd cut tendons in his own hands.
Oh.
Ouch.
Grab the wrong end of the knife.
Grabbed the knife in the wrong way.
Yeah. Oh, that's turning my making my skin crawl. Sorry, turning my crawling skin.
I wasn't aware of it. The important point is not aware of it at all. Dennis survived the attack, though he said it was very sudden and he couldn't identify that Ken was the actual attacker.
Really?
Well, he wakes up and someone's choking him out, and then he wakes up a second time, I'm guessing, and his wife's dead next to him. And so, he didn't really know what was going on. As I said, sadly, Barbara Ann didn't survive the attack. Now, Ken was extremely distraught at her death, but couldn't remember going there or attacking her or Dennis. And he couldn't really remember anything until he was at the police station. So he's got this sort of complete blackout period of time. He was charged with murder and attempted murder, and the case went to court in 1989. Now, the defence team actually believed Ken that he had no idea what had happened and arranged for him to undergo an examination from a psychologist who agreed that Ken didn't seem to have a clue as to what had happened. And so they put forward a defence effectively of sleepwalking.
Oh,
fair enough. Don't mind me, I was asleep.
Prosecution thought this was ridiculous, but through the trial it was evident that the defence had a series of experts that pretty much proved that Ken did have unusual sleep patterns prior to the attack. His brain wanted to wake up 10 to 20 times a night, which meant it was possible he could have been partially asleep when he was at the Woods house, as he could recall a few flashbacks from the night. And he does remember seeing Barbara Ann and Dennis had, I think, 2 younger daughters, younger than Karen, and he vaguely recalls seeing them in some way cowering in the house, or he remembers sort of saying, something about the kids or something. But
or so he says.
Well, I think they saw him. They were cowering from him, but his recollection of things was really sketchy. Yeah.
What I mean is, or so he says.
That's his version,
recollection.
Yeah. So his family, and Ken in particular, had a history of sleepwalking, and Ken was a bedwetter until the age of 11. Now, remember I just said that normally you'll have grown out of it much earlier than that.
Swanny, thank God you were only 8.
I'm just trying to... Where are you going with this? Was he still a bedwetter?
Well, yeah, I know.
I was saying that he most likely had some forms of parasomnia, is really all I'm saying. He would often talk in his sleep and have rapid heart palpitations and wake soaked in sweat, which only happens to me now that I'm perimenopausal. His brother and brothers...
Sex dream.
No sex now that it's perimenopausal. No, thank you. No, thank you, matron. His mother and brothers also spoke of a time when he was a kid. One of them actually had to grab him because he was sleepwalking out of a window of their apartment, which was on the 6th floor. He often talked in his sleep. He didn't remember stuff, often woke at night. So, he definitely had this... He had these things going for
perimenopausal things too.
Parasomnia, gateway parasomnias.
Murdersomnia.
Even cellmates reported, like when he was in jail waiting for trial, they even reported that he'd sit up in bed and he'd mumble a bit and he'd lay back down. So he was still experiencing
that'll convince them.
Oh.
I'll just...
Yeah.
No.
I
think quick fake snore.
Oh, I think he's having a wank. Oh, it's like, no, he's got... What's
sex dream.
Sexomnia. Oh, sexomnia.
Why are you in here?
I think he went from parasomnia to sexomnia. He's definitely unwell.
The defence were able to prove that there had been no premeditation because he hadn't planned this in any way, and no reason or value to Ken attacking his in-laws. He literally had no motivation.
How were they able to prove that there was no planning, no premeditation? Did he have like a planning book and there was nothing in there that...
There's absolutely nothing. There's nothing that
the absence of evidence isn't proof.
There's nothing that had indicated that there'd been any kind of issue between the family. Dennis himself was one of the defence witnesses who talked about...
Until the tyre rotting. He was he?
Yeah. Dennis and Karen.
God.
Karen also testified. So his wife testified about the fact that...
don't worry about Mum. We didn't need her anyway.
Yeah,
I don't think,
fine.
but I think more to the point, it's not that they...
Barbara Ann.
It's not that they
she always
weren't...
made us sing that stupid song anyway.
It's not that they weren't upset about Barbara Ann, but they were quite clearly saying under oath that there was no issue prior. There were very strong and good relationships, And Karen was able to talk to the fact that, yes, he had had all of these bizarre sleep patterns in the past. All it is doing is saying that, yes, he's not making up that he's had these things in the past. They weren't necessarily saying, so therefore that's okay that he went over and killed Mum. That's not the point. The defence also pulled out 35 other documented cases of, and here's a new term you're going to enjoy, homicidal somnambulism. It's hard for me to say. Homicidal somnambulism.
Somnambulism?
Mm.
Jesus. Do we know what that means?
Yeah, it's sleepwalking. It's somnambulism is sleepwalking. Homicidal is killing someone in your sleep.
While walking? Maybe
No,
it's
not sleepwalking if you don't do it. That's right.
And sleeping.
Yeah, that's right. So there are quite a few expert witnesses and family, as I said, who attested for the defence that Ken had no real reason to do this. And so the psychologist came up and said, the stress that he was under with the pending case, losing his job, all that sort of stuff, the lack of sleep, and even the last program he watched on TV that night, which happened to be Saturday Night Live, and they had Dennis Hopper in it doing some thing about Easy Rider parody. And in the Easy Rider parody, he's yelling out, if you're going to kill me like this, kill me like this, kill me naked. I don't know. It was just some part of the parody. The point was they're suggesting that his subconscious mind or his unconscious mind while he's asleep was impacted by all these different things, and that contributed to the events of May 23rd, 1987, i.e. all this shit happened in his head, and as his subconscious is working it through, he's sleepwalking. He goes over these people. He must have been thinking about the fact that he was supposed to have a barbecue with them and tell them about what he's done and where he's at. All of these things they're saying contributed to why he would have been thinking of them in the first place, not why he would have murdered them, but that's sort of the stress that led to this. And the thing is, you might sit there and I can see your faces saying, what a load of old shit. But as it turns out...
It has crossed my mind.
It has crossed mine too, yeah,
I might not be telling it as well as I could be also, but as it turns out, the jury agreed. And after 9 hours of deliberation, Ken Parks was acquitted of the charges of murder and attempted murder.
What did the jury agree? That he didn't do it or that he...
That he had a sex dream.
Think about the charges.
An accident.
I think the important thing is the charges, right? So he's been charged with murder and attempted murder. That's the charge he's facing. The jury have said...
Which he may have committed.
The jury have said, we can't say beyond reasonable doubt that murder one requires a premeditation. And if there's no way of proving that he premeditated this, because one day he's sleeping on the couch and then he just gets up, there's no documented evidence, as you say, there's no journal of him saying, I think tomorrow I might kill my in-laws. There's no way of, he hasn't mentioned any problem to anyone else. There's no way to say he premeditated that murder. He wasn't also, by the way, charged for second-degree murder. He was charged for murder, which requires you to prove that there's premeditation, and attempted murder. Arguably, one might say the charging was wrong on this one. Anyway, He gets acquitted. He did do a 3-month suspended sentence for a bit of fraud, and he had to pay the cash back for that, which was the fraud that he committed against his employer. Karen and he stayed together for another 4 years after the acquittal. And they did, I just don't even know how you would do that. Like, not because you blame him, but it would be very hard to get past.
So that the gambling bit was the for worse bit. Where's the murdering your mum?
Well, 4 years later, she tried, yeah.
Ah.
Anyway, they did divorce.
Why did she finally leave him then? What was it that was so bad 4 years later?
Don't know.
He can't have done anything worse, surely.
Also,
maybe she woke up and he had a tire iron and she went, that's it.
So they ended up splitting, did you say? 4 years later, they got divorced.
Yeah, after the acquittal. And then Ken remarried and he's had 5 more children since then.
He remarried.
He's had a perfectly normal life. He's raised his children. He's had a job. He's been medicated since this happened.
I hope so. Yeah, fuck.
What? For the fact he's got a bit of stress because he's murdered some.
No, it's something to help him manage these sleep disorders.
He's probably on some fucking magnesium supplement, and all of a sudden he gets a pill.
I think it's
sweet dreams.
Yeah. It's like, oh, thank God for that. Now I won't be inclined to murder somebody.
Yeah, Blackmore's sweet. No more murder dreams or something.
I can't remember what it is. It's something like rest of it or something. Going back on that thing about the premeditation that you quite rightly questioned, when the prosecution was trying to basically say that this could have been premeditated, they had an expert witness in who was the psychiatrist, Dr. Ronald Billing. And the question was put to him as per the court transcript, is there any evidence that a person could formulate a plan while they were awake and then in some way ensure that they carry it out in their sleep? And the response was no, absolutely not. It's a stupid question.
Yeah.
It's a stupid question. Yeah, irrelevant.
Really, the question is, yes, was he really asleep? But anyway, the response was no, absolutely not. Probably the most striking feature of what we know of what goes on in the mind during sleep is that it's very independent of waking mentation in terms of its objectives and so forth. There's a lack of control of directing our minds in sleep compared to wakefulness. In the waking state, of course, we often voluntarily plan things, what we call volition. That is, we decide to do this as opposed to that. And there's no evidence that this occurs during the sleepwalking episode. There is usually, they are precipitated. They're part of an incomplete arousal. Process. During which all investigators have concluded that volition is not present. But really the question is...
So what was the relevance of the TV show with the...
It put it into his mind. So you go to bed, I don't know if you've had this, I have, watch something on TV and then you have a dream and it's not quite the same, but there are elements that you know that dream was sparked by whatever's affected you in that TV show.
But I guess what I'm saying is I believe that part of it, which to me then kind of says that if he's got elements in his life of I'm going to kill my mother-in-law, that could also permeate into his dream.
Absolutely, but there was no evidence anywhere that he ever felt that way.
It sounds like there's no evidence anywhere, full stop. But let's acquit him.
Except the mother-in-law dead.
He's dead, yeah.
And the father-in-law alive, but had been strangled.
Well, what I find really interesting is that he walked into a police station and said, I've just done this. So this is not a man who
premeditation.
No, but even in the case of that, so when I talked about his hands, right, the police noted that he had these quite significant wounds on his hands of which he didn't notice for ages. It was as though he was waking
so he
up.
says.
No, they watched it. They could see that he was badly injured. And he didn't seem to be bothered by it until some period of time into the whole questioning. I think they must have witnessed him, whether he's worthy of an Oscar-winning performance, but they sort of witnessed him wake up, if you like. Those wounds were most likely he's held the knife, but he's held the knife in the wrong way, or he's held the blade of the knife because he's asleep. He's not holding.
Or he's done it afterwards.
Oh, silly bugger. He thought he was having sexomnia, but it was a knife. Not him.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or he was holding it down and he stabs it through his hand.
Yeah.
I don't know. The whole thing just freaks me out. I mean, he murdered her.
Yeah.
Or he killed her at least.
And he tried to murder the father too. Just wasn't successful. I'm sorry you've got a couple of deep wounds on your hands, but it's not going to cut it for me.
Schmidty, it's kind of like saying if you go sleepwalking in your sleep and you eat everything in the fridge, you shouldn't get the calories for it.
No, it's not like saying that at all.
Well, surely you're responsible for what you do in your sleep.
No, that's the point. You're not.
But then you shouldn't get the calories because you didn't mean to eat it.
Yeah, and also she shouldn't be dead because I didn't mean to kill her. That's a silly argument. If you believe that he was asleep, the question is how much can you hold him to account for something? And I just think they charged him with the wrong thing. If it was accidental death because he didn't mean to kill her because he didn't even know he was there, it should have been manslaughter.
Yeah. I can't believe he got nothing. I think that's exactly right. I think that there should have been.
This was appealed also.
What did they just say? Oh, don't worry about it, love. You're good.
No, they agreed.
Good.
They just said the Supreme Court upheld the decision to acquit him.
Yeah, don't worry. You're good. Off you go. Back to your life.
Go and start a new family.
Again, though, you're appealing a murder trial.
This one hasn't worked out for you.
They were appealing on the grounds of a murder trial.
Yeah.
He walks in, he says, I've murdered someone, I've killed someone. Okay, fair enough. If he then said, I don't really know what happened, in my mind, he should have been charged with manslaughter.
In my mind, given some of the people that we've seen, how they've been interrogated, this is really quite surprising, isn't it?
Because he walked in and said, I did it.
Oh, really? So, no, that's our job. We tell you what you did or didn't do. Don't you be coming at us telling us what, factually has happened. I've killed someone, but I think I was asleep. Oh, okay. Oh, well. Fair enough.
He was diagnosed with some of those parasomnias, so he did have multiple experts examine him, and they did agree that he did suffer from these things.
I don't doubt that he did. I just think that there should be some. I just think it sets a terrible precedent as well.
Oh, it's awful, isn't it? And
he needs to do some time.
Well, that was the concern about it. That's partly why it was appealed and went up to the Supreme Court, because I think there was a concern about the legalities of people saying, well, I was asleep when I did it, so you can't hold me to account. There have been 35 other cases of homicidal somnambulism, as I said earlier, and some have been upheld and some haven't.
So that's 3 times. Sorry.
Homicidal somnambulism,
I just Googled it then and it said 68.
Well, in this case,
cases of it.
Quite possibly. In the case of this, they used 35 of those as references. So there may have been another, since 1989, there may have been another 30-odd cases that have come out. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 of them were legitimate.
There was one that I read, and it was a historic one, so who knows, right? But it was a woman who was having a dream that her house was on fire, and she threw her baby out the window to save the child. And she was arrested for murdering her child.
Says no one ever.
She had 2 other children that she didn't try and throw out the window because she woke up. But she was heard to say, quick, save him, save him. And again, I think it comes down to if you're living with someone and they do these random things and you know that that's something that they do, you're probably more open to saying, like Karen in this case.
I do agree with that.
I can see this happening, as tragic as it is. Because I've seen him, go and eat everything. No.
We've had a couple of flat tires, and I've been in fear of my life too.
No, I was thinking more go and eat everything out of the fridge, but sure, she's choked me a few times.
Yeah,
it's just she's
choked me out a few times. It was could happen.
It's extreme.
The driving 15 miles is interesting. That he gets in the car and drives.
Yeah.
But there have been cases of people who get up, prepare a meal, do all sorts of things. I did when I think I was in year 10 or 11, I went to bed early one night and I woke up what I thought was 7 o'clock the next morning, and I got up and I got dressed and I walked into the kitchen dressed in my school uniform, ready to get breakfast or something or make a cup of tea for mum and dad. And I woke up in the kitchen and thought, oh, what time is it? And it was only 11 o'clock.
Why are these people dead?
No, I'd been asleep for about an hour and a half.
It's just all of that. I get, right? I get that people do things in their sleep that they don't mean to.
You can do all these things, yeah.
Yes, but
where do you
didn't
go
murder
from
someone.
that to murder, right? Where does
right? He didn't go and get ready for work. He didn't go and, I don't know, look after the baby or just something. Oh no, he went and murdered 2 people. Tried to murder 2 people.
Where's the 400 cases of people trying to kill people in their sleep and actually not doing it? Like, how do you go from why aren't people being attempted? What is it? Homicidal
somnambulism.
Why is everyone who does that successful with their murder, but there's not a whole lot of people who are trying it in their sleep and failing? Why don't we hear about this more often?
Well, actually, I think you find kangaroo punching.
Oh, is what?
Well, maybe he was trying to murder you, but he was asleep, so he wasn't very good at it. I'd watch out if I were you, Clarky.
I mean, maybe, but also it just doesn't make sense. I don't.
But I'm sure there are people who, not necessarily people who listen to this, because there aren't that many of our, like in our populace. If we had more than 30 people, maybe someone would put their hand up and say, my partner has punched or kicked me or done something violent, which they would never do, or strangled me, never done anything like that in their waking lives, but have done it in their sleeping lives. It does happen. It has
Murder, though. We're not talking about
your brain isn't saying I'm going to
cooking a lamb roast.
This goes back to what is your brain saying, right? Is your brain saying I have got a clear thought that I'm going to murder someone? Or is your brain responding to a whole lot of subconscious things that are going on?
But my point is, so I understand that's what you're saying has happened in this instance. Where's the bit of people waking up in their sleep, walking into the next room and punching someone in the face? I don't like them. I want to punch them. Therefore, somehow I'm going to do that in my sleep. Why do we go from snacking in the fridge to murder and there's nothing in between?
Oh, there's lots in between. You can accidentally rape your partner, from what I read. Sorry, what was it? It was Initiation of sexual intercourse when they're fast asleep. Yeah. Pull my nightie down when you're done, Dal. Yeah.
But that's still in the bedroom, and it's nah, it's still. I don't know. There's a massive gap. I need that gap filled. That doesn't make sense.
All right. Well, Ken, I need you to do some time to it. I can't be doing this. Just sort of, look, I know I did it. I was asleep. You know, I love my in-laws. Sorry. And I think Ken should put himself, I think he should be the one who's like, I need to do some time. You can't do that. You've killed people. It's a terrible precedent. I understand everything that you've said regarding what can happen in your sleep. And I appreciate that. But the reality is, if this is something that becomes a defense, then I just worry where it leads. The reality is that someone's dead. He absolutely did it. You know, it wasn't an accident in the sense that he sort of fell on her and accidentally killed her. He, you know, beat her with
sleep driving.
No, all those things. I just think I can't. I think he needs to do it, I don't know, time in jail for manslaughter. Just, stock standard. It doesn't need to be punished in any other way. I want it to be a very sort of, based on the fact that he was a good person who did something, had a bit of a problem with gambling or quite a problem. He had forged checks. He had stolen from his employer. It's not like he was totally squeaky clean. We all sort of make, it didn't work out quite so well for him. Yeah, but at the end of the day, you killed your mother-in-law and tried to kill your father-in-law. And it's not they don't love you. That obviously they do. But it doesn't all add up to me to nothing. It adds up to something, and the something is doing sometime. What about you, Clarky?
Yeah, I'm really struggling with the scot-free element of it.
Yep.
I think, in other instances, someone might go to a mental institution or whatever. If you are going to accept the defence, then something else has to play into it. You can't just go back to life as normal after you've killed someone. I get that must be horrendous for him. I understand that. If what he's saying is absolutely true, that must be horrendous. But it happened. And I think of, probably other things where people kill people in a car accident that is completely an accident. Or if you kill someone when you're texting.
When you say it's completely an accident, you're implying this was not completely an accident.
No, what I'm saying is that he's gone into someone's home with a weapon, the tire iron, and then grabbed a knife and stabbed her several times. I can't come at that being an accident. Whereas if somebody has a blowout in their tire driving down a road and crosses over the other side and has a head-on and kills someone, to me that's something that is an accident, right? Those two things I don't think weigh up or as equal. The fact that he's gone and done that, something has to give. Whether it's he needs a whole lot of treatment, not his rest of it or whatever it was you were saying he was put on.
Something like clozapam or something, but yeah.
Something has to, there has to be something that I'm just not seeing here. And maybe his 5 children needs to constantly sit at the end or stand at the end of his bed staring at him like Village of the Damned, and he wake up to that every night. I don't know. It's just something is missing that makes me really uncomfortable with this.
I don't think he intended to kill his in-laws. I think that he was under a great deal of stress and that had undue effects on him.
Fair enough.
But
yeah, fair enough.
I think that the mistake here.
Now that you put it like that.
I think he was under a great deal of stress because he had a gambling addiction and he had to go and tell people he had a gambling addiction.
Yeah, and he'd been embezzling from his employer.
That would be terribly stressful.
Oh, man.
Yes, it would.
And not to mention what he was watching on TV.
Correct. Could have all played into his psychological state. But I think the issue for me is the way he's been charged. If it had been treated as a manslaughter, he would not have got away with it because I'm sure he would have pled guilty to it. The fact that they made it as murder, he's been given an opportunity to plead not guilty. Otherwise, we would have even had some kind of proof of, if he had pled guilty to this, it'd be about how much time he does, right? The court case. The reality is he's been able to plead not guilty, and he's able to plead not guilty because they said you've premeditated this.
So
and
based
I don't
on
believe
that comment,
he did.
Okay. So based on that, would you then wish to
go back in time.
No.
He goes into the police station.
Would you deal with somebody who is the people who are constructing the defence or the?
No, the police. The police raised the charge.
Okay,
the police charged him. And because he walked in and said, I've killed someone, I've killed 2 people, my God, my hands, I've killed someone. Okay, fine, but you don't go, okay, cool, could you just sit here for a second and you have the right to remain silent? I'm charging you on suspicion of murder. As they went through that process, he should have been charged on suspicion of manslaughter. And the charge should have been manslaughter because that would have held up, absolutely. And then the two of you would have been much more satisfied by the outcome of this.
If he got manslaughter, if he got 5 years in jail or 10 years in jail,
you would have been much more satisfied by the outcome.
Yeah.
I could. It just leaves this horrible feeling in my stomach of the fact that could happen to somebody, being Barbara Ann, and everyone just go, "Oh, you're right, mate."
Yeah,
sorry,
I don't think anyone.
I know you've been stressed.
Yeah. And look, the prosecution did try quite hard to put him away, but that's the interesting thing, or the difficulty about at the beginning of that process, you've got to get that bit right. And the mistake
was there a warning on the TV show that said,
it was Saturday Night Live,
warning viewers, content may inspire
sleep-related,
homicidal,
somnambulism.
Somnambulism, yeah, like, come on.
Saturday Night Live. Somnambulism Night Live. That's really what the SNL stands for.
HSNL.
So for me, I mean, if I was going to sentence anyone, it's again just take a little bit of time before you put those charges down and think about what it's going to hold. I mean, he knew he did the wrong thing. He knew that had happened, and I think that man has gone through quite a lot, actually. Going off and having 5 more kids and whatever, you still have to...
Is that the punishment you thought that he deserved? Yeah. Fair enough.
You still have to live with what you've done.
I know you were stressed.
Yeah, shut up. I think the poor fellow has probably suffered quite a lot. But I would have been quite happy for him to do...
Oh, he was tied too, wasn't he?
I would have been happy for him to do a few years stretch for manslaughter.
He got 3 months suspended sentence for his embezzlement, so he's been punished pretty hard for that too.
He did some time.
Teflon.
He did do some time while he was pending the case. But not enough for what actually happened. So
my heart bleeds for Kenny Parks.
Kenny Teflon Parks. All right. Cool.
Such a good guy.
The funny thing was I read something else.
Stress.
I read something else, which was years down the track. He runs for I don't know, it's school president or council president. Kenny Parks, yeah. Because he's got 5 kids and he's very worried about how...
Oh, there's probably some crime going on in the neighbourhood.
Council
or
something.
Remember you murdered someone. Oh.
To be voted in to be a councillor or something, right?
Right.
For that sort of thing. And the predominant reason why he didn't succeed wasn't because he'd murdered Barbara Ann.
Because he was sleeping in the meetings?
No, because he had a history of gambling and fraud.
So not murder.
It wasn't
we need to end this episode. It just gets me angry.
It wasn't the murder that was the issue. People were like, oh, whoops, you were asleep.
We don't want to touch the books. Yeah.
It was much
Let's
more
never
about
talk of Kenny Parks
whether
again.
or not he was a dubious character because of those previous things. All right, well, maybe we'll leave Kenny Teflon Parks alone.
Yeah, Kenny Teflon. Kenny Teflon
Parks. Stressed Kenny Teflon Parks.
I'm stressed and tired, though. And tired.
And tired. Unlike everyone else on this podcast, who is
exactly.
definitely not.
Yeah, well, no homicidal somnambulism for you two, all right? Okay.
No, thank you.
Not tonight, Darl. I've got a headache.
That's right. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me on that one. And I love the fact that you both did behave like you had never heard that before. And I know it wasn't an act.
It really wasn't.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that story about? I've forgotten already.
Say what? Kenny who? Yeah. Thank you very much. And as we say every week, miss you already.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine. Or visit our website, www.trialbywine.com, to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from Pixabay.com.